Welcome to part 4 of my B-17 series, featuring the A2A Simulations B-17 Flying Fortress. We've been doing some formation work in and around the Geneseo area of upstate New York. At the end of the last video, we had just passed down Lake Keuka, over the Curtis Museum in Hammondsport, and then made a climbing right turn to exit the valley and head back west towards Geneseo for our scheduled flybys. Down on the ground to the left there, you can see that highway. That's Route 390 heading northwest through the town of Dansville, which we are now starting to fly over. Ahead of us is Dansville Municipal Airport, established in 1927, largely through the efforts of World War I pilot Lynn Pickard. Clara Barton established the first American Red Cross in Dansville in 1881. She also used the location as her headquarters for trying to get incorporated with the International Red Cross. Nathaniel Rochester, the founder of Rochester, New York, now a large city, was born and raised in Dansville. And the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad built their main line through the town in 1882, on their way from connecting Buffalo to Binghamton, New York. That's interesting for me because they also went on to build the Scranton rail yards here in Scranton as they expanded from Binghamton down to the Atlantic Ocean. You know, they were looking to get into the coal trade and for ways to move that coal to international markets. So they came through Scranton, and the Scranton rail yards are now Steamtown, USA, which is a national park railroad museum. Now, ahead of us, off to the west, slightly in the distance, is going to be Letchworth State Park. Letchworth is known as the Grand Canyon of the East. It's 17 miles long. The Genesee River cuts through this valley and has worn down this canyon over millions of years. Originally, it was Seneca tribelands, the Iroquois nation that the lake is also named for, up to the northeast, Lake Seneca. They lived there for many years. During the Revolutionary War, the Seneca sided with the British. And so at the conclusion of the Revolutionary War, because they were the losers of the war, they were forced to sell off almost all of their land. At the southern end of the park is a series of beautiful waterfalls, and a man named William Pryor Letchworth loved them so much that he bought all the land following the Genesee River in that area. Letchworth was an iron businessman. He was an iron magnate. He buys the land in 1859 and then builds a home next to the waterfalls, which he lives at for all of his life. In 1906, he donates the state park to the state of New York to deter businesses from ruining the area by growing up along the river. He remained in his home on the state park for 3 more years until he passed away. His home is now a inn and restaurant that you can stay at, and also the Letchworth Museum is there, which on site, it's nearby. It actually used to be his library. That is now a museum and details his life and his contributions. He was big into philanthropy. Alright, so you can see that we're lining up on Geneseo runway 5. Coming up on that ahead of us. Our first pass is going to be a medium altitude at cruise speed.
Flight, we are about to be over the airport. Let's keep it tight and make it look good once again. flight will clear the airport, beginning left 180-degree turn.
And if you look down just to the left, the river that passes right by the airport, that is also the Genesee River. After it comes out of Letchworth, it flows north, goes past the airport, continues north, and then eventually empties into Lake Ontario.
Rolling out on runway heading.
And now as we roll out, you can see that I've done a little bit of cut time. For our 360, we're lining back up on runway 5. Our second pass is going to be slightly lower and slightly faster. And tightening up the formation as we're getting close to the airport, sliding into position. And here's our view again from the flight line on the ground.
Flight will clear the airport, begin left turn.
And another time cut as we've circled back around to the initial point on Route 5. This is going to be our simulated bombing run, so we're going to be low, fast. The pyrotechnics are going to go off.
Captain, engine 2 is low on fuel.
A2A flight, here we go. Keep close and keep that speed up.
fire crews are putting out the blaze, getting that all taken care of, and then now we're on our downwind leg.
B-17 flight, this is flight lead. Change formation to right echelon for overhead breakaway.
And there's the order to change formation. Not much of a change. I'm just going to slide out to the right. And so we're going to make a check mark with the longer leg to the right, and then that's going to let us make the break to the left. The overhead 360, also known as the overhead brake, is a military maneuver that's been around since at least World War II, maybe even a little before. The purpose of the maneuver is to facilitate the recovery of large formations of aircraft in less time and less airspace than just having all the planes line up and perform normal approaches. A secondary benefit is because the aircraft maintain a higher speed over the airport while circling to land, it minimizes their exposure to ground fire. So landing in hostile areas like the Marines on Pacific Island during World War II, it was safer for them to get down and not get shot at. The maneuver consists of flying over the airport parallel to the runway heading, and then each aircraft breaking off in sequential order, and then doing a 180 ending up on the downwind, and then once they're abreast of the landing area, performing another tight 180 to come in and land right on the runway. This helps space the aircraft out, so you have a safe distance between each one for touchdown.
B-17 flight, this is B-17 flight leader. Stand by for left brake for landing. Brake, brake, brake.
And landing lights on as we make our turn to be number 4 for landing in the pattern.
B-17 flight, this is flight leader. It's been an honor to fly with you today. See you all on the ground.
And we're coming out here on the downwind leg.
Yes, sir, they're all yours.
And I'm going to start doing my approach and landing checklist. So, get those cowl flaps to 33, not close enough, 31%. Open for landing. We're going to set mixture to auto rich, which it is, it's been the whole time. The air filters are still on. Turbos to full. And we are abeam the landing, or the touchdown point. so gear down. Then we're going to check our hydraulic pressure. 600 to 800 psi in the green, so we have brakes. At less than 147 miles an hour, we're going to start lowering flaps by 1 notch, or approximately 3 seconds.
Geneseo traffic number 3 is on left crosswind. Runway 5 for landing.
Tail wheel down. Main wheels are down.
Like I said before, normally, right when you're abeam the touchdown point, drop the gear, and then you go into the 180 so that you're actually rolling out straight and level right as you're coming over the threshold to the runway. We're not doing that here because we're not in a time crunch and we're not under enemy ground fire, so we've spaced it out a little bit. We're kind of taking our time. But normally that's how you would do it. We would all have made that left turn and then come in right over the runway and then touch down in that sequential order. But not today.
Geneseo traffic number 3 is on final runway 5 for landing. Geneseo traffic number 1 is on final runway 5 for landing.
120.
Alright, RPM set at 2500 for landing, and 120 is our target approach speed. So bring power up, and I want to keep it at 120.
Geneseo traffic, B-17 number 2 is on final runway 5, full stop.
130.
And Geneseo traffic number 4 is on final runway 5, full stop landing.
Flaps down.
So again, we're coming down, you got this little tree right on the end of the runway, so we're gonna have we gotta aim beyond that and have kind of a steep descent angle to clear it, and then cut the throttles to touch down safely. Great landing. You're only as good as your last landing, and that one was way better than the one when we arrived last night, so I've redeemed myself.
Flaps up.
Geneseo traffic, 2 is clear of the runway.
Geneseo traffic, 4 is clear of the runway.
Captain, our carb temp is getting pretty high. Nice flying with you, sir. We're rolling.
And now that we are clear of the runway, we're going to taxi back to the show line. And I'm going to get these windows open. It's a hot day out, and it's certainly hot in the cabin. There is nothing more refreshing, for some reason, than opening the windows after just landing on a hot day. Just get that breeze flowing through the cabin. And it's just it's a very relaxing feeling to just know that you're on the ground and you don't have to work so hard anymore. Because you're on the ground, man. You made it. The hard part's over. So as we're taxiing back to our parking positions, just want to take a minute to thank you for watching the video. If you've been with me through all 4 of the videos over the course of, well, whatever it's been, 2 years, thanks for coming back and seeing it down to the end. The last 2 were very time-consuming but very fun to make, just because they look so cool. It's a rare sight in real life to see, a lot of these older airplanes flying together. I think it's going to get more and more rare as more time goes by and less of the planes are flying. Either they get retired, they're not airworthy anymore, some of them crash. There's less warbirds now flying around than there was, say, in the 80s or the 60s. So, here we have a chance to just see some cool stuff that you don't get to see every day. So I hope you liked it. It's a lot of work, but it's pretty fun, and I'm happy to have completed it. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. Perfect. We're in our parking spot. Cut off the mixtures and mags off, master off. Fuel pumps off. Fuel cutoff switches are off. Put all our control locks on, close those cowl flaps, turn off all my electronics, and secure the aircraft. Now, once we get this plane secured, I'm going to head back out, climb out of the airplane, and walk over to the flight line, because I've just received word that there's a special guest arriving for a flyover. So I'm going to head outside to watch. Here coming in from the west for a low pass over Geneseo Airport is the John Travolta 707. This plane is named the Jet Clipper Ella, named after John Travolta's kids. He acquired it in 1998. It was originally a Qantas 707, registry VB-EHM. When he acquired it, it became November 707 JT. As of last year, 2017, he has announced that he is going to be getting rid of it, and it's going to be donated to the Historical Aircraft Restoration Society, which is near Sydney, Australia. So right now the aircraft is awaiting for funds to be raised by that society to restore it for the journey to Australia, and then when it goes, John Travolta hopes to be captaining it one last time to bring it down to that museum.